The U.S. Department of Energy recently announced a golden era of energy dominance, declaring we now produce more oil than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined. Simultaneously, the technology sector is forecasting over $1 trillion in new infrastructure by 2027 to power the rapid expansion of artificial intelligence. In agriculture, the Holstein Association recently named its latest Star of the Breed, a single cow that produced over 51,000 pounds of milk in 1 year. Applying a wide boundary view to these markers of progress reveals a significant disconnect between reported growth and the physical reality unfolding underneath. The claim of U.S. oil dominance relies on a specific accounting method. It bundles high-quality crude with natural gas liquids and various biofuels. While we are a net exporter of the liquids used to make plastic baggies, we averaged imports of over 6 million barrels of oil a day for the last 2 years just to meet our consumption. This accounting hides our true position on the carbon pulse, the brief historical window of discovering easily accessible fossil fuels. This drove an upslope of rapid expansion. Now we navigate the precarious plateau. The easy energy is gone, and the downslope represents declining returns. Most of our economic models and political institutions were forged during the upslope. Because they were built to manage growth and abundance, they are now often ill-equipped to handle the logistics of a plateau or the realities of a descent. During the energy shocks of the 1970s, societies had room to adapt. Most oil was burned in homes or small cars, making it easier to swap for gas, and there were still vast untapped reserves in the ground to incentivize new production. Today, energy is more deeply embedded into critical, complex industries. Aviation, shipping, and petrochemicals cannot easily substitute their fuel sources, making our modern infrastructure far more rigid and vulnerable to disruptions. In this tightly wound system, a shock in the Persian Gulf triggers an immediate cascade. Because that region supplies 1/4 of the world's ammonia and 1/5 of its phosphate, any trade disruption results in fertilizer shortages that guarantee lower crop yields in the coming seasons. These shocks hit the most vulnerable populations first. Over 1 billion people rely on imported gas cylinders for cooking fuel. When supply lines through the Middle East are threatened, families in Mumbai are forced to line up at 3 a.m. to secure a basic necessity. This forces a regression in human progress. Communities that had transitioned to cleaner gas are suddenly forced back to burning charcoal and firewood, trading long-term respiratory health for immediate survival, because local fuel is the only thing they can reliably afford. By hyper-optimizing for efficiency, we have stripped the shock-absorbing fat from the global system. This lack of resilience leaves humanity exposed as the energy inputs required to maintain our complexity become harder to secure. Humanity's collective system functions like a superorganism, a metabolic entity that must consume energy to maintain its growth. For a century, we've fed its muscles, freight, steel, and concrete. Now we are suddenly diverting a massive portion of its metabolic load to feed its brain through AI compute. This creates a profound asymmetry. We are reanimating decades-old nuclear plants and building 30-year energy infrastructure to feed software models that become obsolete in 18 months, betting on energy abundance in a system that is no longer built for it. We see this same tension in environmentalism. In Minnesota's boundary waters, pristine wilderness is being opened for mining to secure the copper and cobalt framed as essential for a green transition. We are being asked to sacrifice the wilderness to save the climate. A century ago, agricultural output was strictly limited by local biology. In the 1920s, a cow produced roughly 5,000 pounds of milk a year, tethered to the natural cycles of its environment. Today's super cow is a biological machine built out of fossil fuels. Her 51,000-pound output is only possible through nitrogen fertilizers for her feed, constant antibiotic regimes, and global logistics systems, inputs that are becoming more expensive and less reliable. These solutions are maladaptive because they rely on upslope logic. They attempt to solve resource limits by accelerating extraction, essentially trying to run expansion-heavy software on a downslope reality. As the downslope begins, the era of borderless globalization will retreat. We are moving toward a period of resource nationalism, where nations pull extractive externalities home and prioritize domestic security over global trade. This metabolic superorganism is likely to fracture, We are seeing the early signs of a system calving in half between East and West, as each side attempts to secure the dwindling resources it needs to survive. Wealthy nations will experience this shift as rising prices and economic discomfort. For less wealthy nations, the consequences are literal shortages that mean the difference between eating or not, and clean air or pollution. Relying on manipulated institutional data is increasingly dangerous. As factors like war and capital flight begin to dictate our energy security, it is possible to pass the peak of the carbon pulse without ever being told the truth about our position on the curve. Navigating this requires radical honesty about our biophysical limits. We must move beyond the aspiration of infinite expansion and begin the difficult work of local and regional planning for a less energy-intensive future. Recognizing the gap between our optimistic maps and the physical territory doesn't solve the predicament, but it does allow us to see a few moves ahead, making more informed choices while we still have the discretionary energy.
We have built our world on a high-stakes assumption that our industrial momentum is as unsinkable as the steel hulls we once set into the Atlantic. But the elephant in the room has grown too large to ignore, moving out of our private shadows and into the center of our lives. This is the meta-crisis, the tipping point where the stories of endless growth collide with the physical limits of our planet. The Lifeboat Mini Course is your immediate, structured transition, a free 5-day journey delivered to your inbox to transform global anxiety into local resilience. Day 1 begins with an audit of the invisible, the energy and water systems you rely on every hour, yet rarely ever see. Day 2 forces a change in your geographical lens, challenging you to locate your true home within your watershed and local bioregion. You won't navigate this terrain alone. You will receive daily study guides and synthesized patterns designed to cut through the noise and reveal the architecture of change. Day 3 asks you to practice active hope in a world facing ecological overshoot. Day 4 introduces the demanding standard of revolutionary love. By tracing the water back to your neighbor's tap, you move beyond the narrow walls of self-help and into the expansive, interconnected practice of systems health. The climax arrives on Day 5 with the introduction of a specific framework for your future, the 9x21 harvest. Who is your mutual guiding spirit in this transition, and which 9 things will you choose to do? Stop waiting for the headlines to crush you. Sign up for the Lifeboat Mini Course now. Access your Day 1 materials immediately and join the community hub where the next story of our world is already being written.
You can remain tied to the illusion of a collapsing global credit card, or take this course to begin building real systems health today. The Earth is tired of the lie. It is time to dance with the truth.